All right, it is now time for our visit with Mr. Paul Fulford. Many wellness influencers are calling peptides the secret supplement for looking younger, losing weight, and boosting performance. But how much of this trend is science and how much is hype? Today, we're joined by healthy living expert Paul to break it all down for us. Paul, welcome back to the news desk.
Thanks for having me again, Jay.
You got it. So we're hearing peptides described as this secret to weight loss and anti-aging and muscle building. From your perspective, why have peptides exploded on the social media scene?
Well, we've talked a lot about a lot of different health topics, Jay, and you're talking to
Hmm.
somebody who peptides have changed their life, right? I think one of the biggest reasons, I would say there's quite a few, but I think where it really started, and peptides have been around for decades, right? Peptides are something that we have naturally within our body. I
Hmm.
think why they're being explored so much now is one, I think ever since COVID, people have started becoming a little bit more advocates for their health, if you will, right? Where it's not just relying on some blind faith and not that like again, I work at the intersection of medicine, uh, biohacking, functional wellness, all of those things. And uh, you know, specialties have their place, right? But I think that people are being more proactive about their healthcare. People are being more thoughtful on how they can treat root causes versus band-aids, right? And
Hmm.
there's really three exciting areas I would say that it's one is like tissue repair and recovery, right? So certain peptides are being studied for their ability to support healing muscles, tendons, and ligaments. And it's very interesting for active people and athletes, right?
Okay.
Secondarily, and again, this is where we are as a country, is there's inflammation and metabolic health issues, right? Some peptides influence, appetite and regulation. We've talked about GLP-1s, right?
Hmm.
Glucose metabolism and, the muscle's ability to process sugar. And we've seen them, discussed specifically again in the context of weight management. And then there's a lot of growing research also around brain health, because the brain is extremely responsive to peptide signaling, and they're all basically it's this longevity convergence that's happening, and scientists are exploring how peptide signaling interacts with cellular repair pathways, inflammation control, and mitochondrial health.
Okay, for those that are unfamiliar, those viewers who don't fully understand what peptides are, how would you explain what they do in your body? You kind of broke it down there for us, but what exactly, if I had a sore knee or something, I mean, is that something that I would take? Is this a natural product or is it chemically made?
So great question. And, I think it's a great place to start because the word kind of sounds exotic, right? It's like, the
Yeah.
concept's pretty simple though. Peptides, let's start kind of with what they are, right? Peptides are short chain aminos, right?
Hmm.
Which are the building blocks of proteins. And think of them like signaling molecules, right? It's the act of biological text messages inside the body. Basically, peptides are signaling and they signal what your body needs to do. So this peptide's like, go repair this. This peptide is block the hunger signaling, right? So it's like messages in our body. Your body already has thousands of these peptides every day that control things like metabolism, hormone release, immune response, immune function, tissue repair, and brain signaling, right? So when
Hmm.
people are talking about therapeutic peptides, they're really just talking about using targeted signaling to tell the body to do something it already knows how to do, build muscle, repair tissue, regulate appetite, reduce inflammation. Now, that's very different from the way traditional drugs work, which they often override the body's natural process, right? So, why it's such a big thing with anti-aging and longevity is because our DNA all of a sudden decides to stop sending the same instructions or the same signal as we get older. And what peptides are doing is basically pushing that start button again, sending the instructions as if we were in our late teens and early 20s, right? So there are
Okay.
specific things you would take for specific reasons. And recently in the news, there's like 14 of the peptides and that are basically coming off the class 2 list to not be quote unquote banned anymore to be more available. And specifically, like you mentioned for your knee, one of those would be like BPC 157, which is body protective compound 157, or TB 500. Those are specifically geared towards like signaling for repair and tissue repair.
Okay, interesting. Some peptides are FDA approved, as you mentioned, for specific medical conditions, while others are not. What are some of the other differences that you laid out?
So it really kind of depends on what you're looking for. There's a lot of you can get into like number and alphabet soup with it. um,
Okay.
but there are a lot of different ones that do different things, right? So like if you're like the GLP ones, right? Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, those are all peptides, right? And those are ones that basically tell you basically they put you they assist your body in putting you in a caloric deficit. They decrease the hunger signaling, right? So they
Okay.
make it so that you don't continue to consume more calories so that you can consume the calories you already have stored within your body to lose weight, right? Then you've got there's different neuropeptides that help with improved neurological signaling like cerebrolysin. Then you've got hormone precursors like you've got tesamorelin, ipamorelin, CJC 1295, ipamorelin, 191AA, IGF-1 LR3. These are all peptides that are telling the body to naturally produce growth hormones. So, and again, that's even different than like HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy, TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, and actual human growth hormone. When you're doing those,
Hmm.
sometimes basically the body will stop producing those, after you've added them into your body. And what peptides are doing is telling your body to naturally produce those things the same way it normally would. So it's less of an impact when you go off.
Now, speaking of going off, are these something that you have to take for the rest of your life? In the case of my knee, do I gotta, if I got a trick knee, do I gotta keep taking the supplement?
No. I would say some people like myself for longevity, there's going to be some that are forever peptides, right? That I'm always
Hmm.
going to take. There's some that like a MOTS-C, for example, is something I take for mitochondrial health. Mitochondria are the workhorses of all your cells, right? You want to optimize that for all things. But if you have a specific thing that's an issue, you can take it to accelerate healing and recovery, and then you don't need to
Hmm.
take it anymore.
Okay.
Also, when you do take them, there's typically an on-off period too, right? So when you're on a cycle of them, some of them you'll take once a week, some of them you'll take 3 times a week, some of them you'll take 5 times a week. Typically, a good schedule for most people is taking the weekends off. And then sometimes there are some that do similar things that send some similar signaling, and sometimes it's good to cycle off of one onto another so that you just don't get sort of a built up use like immunity sort of to it, right? Not necessarily immunity is not the right word, but you kind of get used to it. You want to maximize those signal receptors and signaling in the body, and then it is a good thing too for even for those that are like forever peptides to once a month cycle off of that and then go back on it, right? Just so that it just maintains its maximum effectiveness.
And now, peptides, Paul, these are not OTC, are they?
No. So again, this is where the FDA has had a lot of its things, and it can again. This is one of those things too, where it can be the wild wild west. It's really you really want to consider your sourcing. Now, you can see a functional medicine doctor. There are people that are doing these different things. You don't have to just be a functional medicine doctor. General practitioners are doing this. Ideally, the
Hmm.
ones that you can get, you're getting through a compounding pharmacy because that's where you're going to get the purest source. There are some decent online sources, right? But a physician's never going to prescribe a patient an online source, right? They're gonna prescribe what they can send to a compounding pharmacy and get compounded for that particular patient, right? So um, it's all like right now people are all about it, and you can go online and buy this peptide, but you don't know about the purity, and they'll say for research purposes only because that's how they get around being able to sell it to the public because it's not intended for human use, and if somebody buys it for human use, that's their kind of CYA where they can kind of hold it at arm's length. Hey, this is for research purposes. This is not for human consumption, right? So you're seeing
Okay.
a lot of these pop up. But I think now also with this, one of the things that RFK Jr. is doing by this recent legislature is trying to make it so that it can be more open access and have
Hmm.
more oversight with it versus these wild wild west things popping up, because people are going to get it and it's outpacing like the way the paperwork can keep up, right? So they have to start making and drawing some lines in the sand because it is preventative. These things do work. The drug companies have had their problems with it simply because it's not something that they've patented that they can make money with, right? And it kind of again, it's a little bit opposite of what your typical thing is with a drug, right? Is that drugs typically block certain things where this is trying to promote your body's natural ability to do it.
Okay. Side effects, are there any right now that we know about, even if it's taken as directed?
There can be, right? Like that's why like medical oversight is important because you should get your blood work done every 3 months. Um, Anytime you're doing things to the body where the body's natural process was to decline and you're bringing it back up, you need to monitor it, right? You don't want to be increasing testosterone levels and growth hormone levels if you're at risk for cancer, right? That's just going to help rapid like development of that.
Okay.
There are certain things that are based on different markers you want to be concerned with: liver issues, kidney issues. So you want to make sure that when you're doing these things, you are getting your blood work. Ideally, implemented the correct way, proper dosing, medical oversight, you should have very little side effects. But it's not that they're not there; they just need to be monitored.
Okay. Paul, who should consider medically supervised peptide therapy and who absolutely shouldn't? You kind of mentioned there those with cancer or possibly kidney or liver damage.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some that should with particular issues, but again, it's just and it also depends on the peptide, right? Like I would say, you're not going to try to increase growth hormone when you're on cancer, right? But like, would it be beneficial to increase MOTS-c, right? Or like, by taking MOTS-c to increase mitochondrial health? Probably, like you want to
Hmm.
create a better environment. Um, you're talking to somebody that thinks that I wish that I could just get everybody on peptides. So again,
Hmm.
some of my takes are biased sometimes. Um, just like when we were talking about the burgers that time, right? Like I might think
Yeah.
some of my takes are biased, but I would say that um, people that like I really like my levels now are are better than they were 10 years ago, right? Like so all of my biomarkers by taking peptides, my biological age is like 9 years younger than my actual age now because of this. I'm almost like Benjamin buttoning myself, right?
Going backwards.
Like
Yeah, that's
it,
awesome.
yes, inside I'm younger than I am on the like actual linear scale of my age, right? So the I I would say for sure somebody trying to come back from injury or surgery faster obviously is a great candidate. People that are just looking to improve their overall quality of health, you know, there's there's so much to be said for being overweight and metabolic disease. That's why these GLP-1s have become so prevalent. I can tell
Hmm.
you the next big thing, which I think is an absolute game changer as far as that world is concerned, is retatrutide. Retatrutide is a triple agonist. It works on the GLP-1 receptor. It works on the GIP receptor. So GLP-1 would be like your semaglutide, your Ozempic. Then you've got your tirzepatide, like your Wegovy, and then you've got now retatrutide. And retatrutide, Eli Lilly holds the patent on that. Now you can get compounding pharmacies that are making it. You can get it compounded, but that third agonist is the glucagon agonist, and what that does is that helps the body basically convert glucose to glycogen so that your muscles can use it, right? And it prevents less muscle wasting, which are the biggest concerns with
Mm.
people on
Yep.
GLP-1s, is that they're losing muscle, right? Um, and then also anybody that is just, I would say, like your elderly population as it relates to some of the things that you deal with in decline. some of the peptides that you can stack together, like a BPC 157, a TB 500, a GHKCU, which is copper peptide, and KPV, which is anti-inflammatory. When you use a combination of those, it's reparative, restorative, regenerative, and revascularizing, right? So, and it works at the root cause. So I would, I gave you a big answer to say that I think
Hmm.
segmented, depending on the peptide, there's something for anybody's benefit. And one thing that's nice for people that don't like injections, because most of these are done with like an insulin needle, is that BPC 157 is very bioavailable for orally, right? So if you take the compounding pharmacy pills, it's very beneficial because your body will process it. My daughter had massive gut issues that we needed for repair, and she went on BPC 157 orally for a month and completely repaired her gut within a month's time.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
as we wrap things up here, Paul, one last question. And these peptides continue to gain attention online and in wellness circles. What do you think the public's conversation is missing about their role in medicine and in health?
I think the role in medicine and help is that, I think medicine is gradually moving toward more precise biology aligned therapies, right? And I think traditional medicine is going to have to embrace this. Like I talk a lot about biofunctional aesthetics, which is biohacking biology, functional medicine, and medical aesthetics. And the aesthetics piece of it is your feedback that it's working, right? And traditional pharmaceuticals often work by blocking the pathways, like we said, or forcing the body to respond in a certain way. And peptides work differently. They communicate within the body's existing signaling system. So while peptides are not a miracle cure, they are part of a larger shift toward what I would call precision signaling medicine. And I
Hmm.
think that most people are, I mean, you have to understand they're not magic, but they're also not hype, right? Like it's a fascinating area of science that I think medicine is having to start to embrace because more and more people are wanting preventative care, not just reactive care. We almost have this like prescription for prescription model where it's like this continuum, right? Where we're managing decline versus managing optimization. And, I think you still need to focus on the fundamentals. And before people just start sticking themselves with needles or asking for it, you need to move your body. You need to eat well. You need to sleep well. You need to manage stress. I mean, those are all things we've talked about in the past, right?
Yeah.
All of those things need to be managed well, and that's what a good doctor is going to tell you too. But I really feel like we're going to start to see more and more people doing this on a regular basis, and I think we'll see a decline in a lot of the metabolic and inflammation type diseases we see in this country if we do so.
Paul, what's the price point on some of these peptides? For instance, if I wanted my trick knee to feel better, a month of
We got to
peptides for
work on
my
your trick
knee.
knee, Jay. This is
We got
something you keep
we
bringing
got to
up,
get
buddy.
that fixed.
um,
What's the
so
price point on these things, and will insurance cover it?
so typically insurance does not cover it, right? Because it's a compounding pharmacy. There you can get them depending on where you're getting them from. I would say, depending on which peptide it is. So for the reparative ones, they're a little bit more expensive. I would say, if you're going to do like a BPC 157 and TB 500, you're looking at probably for a month dosing supply of that around $300, right? 300
Okay,
or a
that's
little
not
bit
bad.
more. Yeah, it's not horrible. And especially once you see the benefits of it, like again, my wife kind of busts my chops about it. She's like, "Hey, where did all these extra monthly expenses go?" I go, "It's so that I can be around longer to help provide for you. That's why. So don't ask questions." Right? So
Yeah.
she it she but it is an added expense. Maybe it's not for everyone, but I think that when you're able to perform better and be a better you're able to do a whole lot more. And I think the expense is minimal when you see the benefits from it. And taking it from somebody that does it on a regular basis, it changed my life.
Absolutely. All right, Paul Fulford, healthy living expert with Cynosure Lutronic, leader in the field of medical treatment systems. Once again, Paul, thank you so much. You made a believer of me in peptides.
All right. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks. Have a great day, bud.
You too.
All right, quick break here at the news desk. We'll be back with a look at your entertainment news next.